866-660-5759. It's a little State of the Union the morning after, and I've certainly had the opportunity to get up on my big old soapbox and offered the same to you at our phone lines at 866-660-5759. How did it play in the hall? Let's go inside the halls of Congress. I had a 6th District Republican, Joe Barton. Morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I'm stuck in traffic on the 14th Street Bridge. Other than that, I'm fine.
And it's 10 degrees, so be very, very careful on that commute. We're very glad to have you. We'll keep the cell towers humming. So what did I didn't expect much going in. I expected an Obama agenda essay, and I got one. It didn't really move the dial for me that much. We know what we've got, and we know what we've got to fight against, and so now nothing to it but to do it, as the saying goes.
Well, it was kind of an empty-calorie, Coke Zero content speech. I mean, it really wasn't a presidential speech. It was a Democrat campaign speech. He had one idea that I hadn't heard about, this Myra account, and he couldn't even pronounce it.
I think we might have messed it up. It's my RA, as in my IRA.
Oh, I couldn't pronounce it.
Which proves that it's a horrible logo, my RA, meaning a kind of a personal retirement thing. But anyway, tell everybody what your understanding of that is. Go ahead.
Well, from what little I know about it, which is what I read the speech, and it's some sort of a personal account that you set up where the money goes into government bonds or something. But he said you can't lose money, which on most government bonds you don't get a real high interest rate. Mm-hmm. So I really don't know. I just, there was no energy. The applause, even on the Democrat side, was pretty polite, kind of perfunctory, except he talked about the minimum wage, and he got off a joke about, no more votes to repeal Obamacare. I mean, so I don't know. It was disappointing. I'm obviously not a presidential Obama fan, but most presidents at least make some attempt to set up a legislative agenda and at least pay lip service to trying to work with Congress. This president didn't, and it's disappointing.
I have to confess that you came to mind immediately when the president came up with one at least bold pronouncement in which he said that the whole climate change thing is settled.
Yeah, well, the science is going against them, and the weather's going against them. I mean, that's why they're calling it climate change now, Mark, instead of global warming, is because it's been really, really cold, and it's hard to blame CO2 in the atmosphere for really bad cold weather. So they switched over their phraseology from global warming to climate change. And it is a fact that the climate is changing, but it's been changing for millions and millions of years.
Yeah, God did that. Climate change is real. God did it. There are cyclical temperatures through eons past and future. But the notion of man-made climate change, sorry, it's a fraud.
Yeah, it's I pointed out yesterday in the hearing that all this oil and gas that we're consuming now was initially created millions of years ago when there was about 3,000 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. And all of the plants that we depend on, our corn, our wheat, for our food and fiber, when they were created or evolved, depending on your point of view, they were set for CO2 content a lot higher than we have today. So, I mean, it wasn't too many years ago that the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, I'm talking about in the 1700s, was about 250 parts per million, and we had what they call the little ice age. So, we're approaching 400 parts per million. That is not a problem. That is not anything to wet your pants over. And the environmentalists and the liberal Democrats, it's a religious orthodoxy now. It's not a scientific debate.
It is a sacrament. All right, let's go to a couple of other things the president had as an idea. I want to ask you, Speaker Boehner, who some days I'm good with and some days not, had some wonderful rhetoric. He said a lot of these things. He's going to run up against a Republican brick wall, and we're not going to be steamrolled by this guy. So let's talk about how much fight we have in us for some things. First of all, minimum wage.
I don't see that happening. I think that's more of what they would call a wedge issue to fire up their base. with an economy like this, you can't talk job creation on one hand, and then on the other hand, raise the minimum wage. You raise the minimum wage, you cost jobs, especially those first earner, entry level jobs. Those go away. So I know I don't see that happening at all in the House, and it probably won't even come up in the Senate.
A lot of the other things are just little things that the president says that speaks of the federal government sticking its nose where it doesn't belong. If Texas wants to have a whole bunch of government-paid pre-K, we can do that if we want to, but why should the federal government have anything to do with that?
Shouldn't. It shouldn't. Again, he didn't give a presidential speech. He gave a campaign speech. That's as much to inspire the 42% of the country that still likes him, and the Democrats in the House and the Senate that have stuck with him. That was not a speech to make America work.
Last thing, then, unemployment. I've always believed that you get more of what you subsidize, including unemployment, that if we make it easier for people to sit on the couch, they'll sit on the couch, and yet we'll be portrayed as cruel and heartless, et cetera. So what's the best way to navigate the tricky waters of unemployment benefits?
Well, I think where we have the status quo is acceptable, and I would almost say adequate. I've been unemployed, and I know the pain and the anguish, not just physically but mentally, when you want to work and you can't find a job. So I'm not going to say that's not a problem, but making the benefit package more generous and longer doesn't lower the unemployment rate, and I think where we have it now is adequate. I tell you one thing, Mark, that we ought to have a fight over, and that's the debt ceiling increase. And I sure hope that our leadership decides to require some cost savings before raising the debt. There's debt ceiling. There's quite a bit of talk here in D.C. that we're going to do a clean debt ceiling. In other words, raise the debt ceiling with no offsetting reforms. And I think that's flat wrong. And I'm going to be pretty vocal about that in the Republican retreat that we're about to undergo here.
No, I knew that was coming. As the last thing, I'd love to be a fly on the wall there. Where does everybody go for the retreat?
We go to someplace in Cambridge, Maryland. Yeah. We'll hop on buses and go up there. I'll be there this afternoon and tomorrow and Friday, and then we'll come back late Friday.
Now, does this put sort of establishment types and Tea Party types and squishy rhinos and hardcore conservatives all in the same room just to kind of have it out in private? Man, that's exciting.
It puts everybody together in the same
baby.
room. Yeah, that's true. And it is a pretty spirited debate. I'm about to run. I'm in the House garage now. I almost ran over the appropriation chair.
Okay, we can't have that. That would be bad. Listen, I'll let you go. Thank you. Enjoy the lovely Chesapeake Bay there in Cambridge. God bless. Thank you, Joe. We'll be talking again soon.
Okay, Mark.
You bet. Take care. You betcha.